Hi everybody, Joe here from SHUTTERSPEAK Photography. Very nice to see your smiling faces again here on YouTube. So today I'd like to talk to you about a feature that's built into your Nikon Z camera. It's called Time-lapse movie mode. Now, there's also interval shooting and time-lapse movie. There are two options and they're very similar, but time-lapse movie is a feature that's built into this camera that makes creating time-lapses super simple. I'm not sure a lot of people know about this, and I want to go over it with you and show you how it works, what all the options do, and how you can make yourself a really easy time-lapse movie just by using this feature that's built right into your camera. So, hey, before we get started though, I'd just like to say thanks for watching. I appreciate you and appreciate you checking out this video. And if anything in this video does help you out, please help me out by hitting the subscribe button and ring the bell so you get notified of future updates on this channel. That would help me out quite a bit, and hey, you get to help somebody out and help them out by doing something that's free, right? So hey, what's better than that? So let's get started on taking a look at how this all works on your Nikon Z camera. Okay, so I am on the back of the Nikon Z6 II, but it really doesn't matter if you had a Z6 II, Z5, Z7, Z6, Z7 II. It's a Z50, it's not going to matter. This option is built into the camera. It's in the photo shooting menu, and you'll see there's two separate things. There's interval timer shooting and there's time-lapse movie. Very similar. They kind of do the same thing, but time-lapse movie makes doing it a little bit simpler. It basically does all the heavy lifting of making a time-lapse in the camera, so you don't have to. You don't have to worry about taking all those shots, compiling them in a program, and creating a movie out of them. It's going to be all done in camera for you. So that being said though, there are some things that you do need to be aware of. So let's take a look at the time-lapse movie menu, and you'll see the first option is of course start, and that's how you would start making a time-lapse movie. The next screen down is interval, and what interval does is it chooses the amount of time between shots. So to make a time lapse, essentially what the camera does is it just takes a series of photos and then at the end blends them together into a movie. And because there's an interval of time, the movie seems to move quicker than actual time. So you can compress, say, an hour into 30 seconds. Right? So the amount of time in your interval also greatly affects how fast or slow your movie's going to be. So 5 is generally a pretty good setting, 5 seconds. However, if you wanted things in your movie to move very quickly, you could choose 1 second. If you wanted things to move relatively slowly, choose 15 seconds. And by setting that amount of time in between shots, you will change how fast or slow things appear to move in your time lapse. So the next setting is shooting time, and what shooting time is the amount of real time that your camera will be shooting for. So in this case, my camera is set to 1 hour. And you'll see down at the bottom, the section that's in blue, okay, that's going to be the duration of what the time lapse is going to be. So what it's telling me is if I shoot for 1 hour at 5 frames per second, 1 hour is going to give me a movie at the end that's 30.1 seconds long. It's actually going to take 56 minutes and 56 seconds to complete that. Okay, at the end it will compile the movie for me and it will be playable immediately in camera. Okay, so one of the things that you do need to be aware of though is that this time-lapse movie mode only works in certain settings within your Nikon camera. So you need to be either using programmed auto mode, basically P, aperture priority mode, or you could use manual mode, but you have to have auto ISO enabled. Okay, so in terms of shooting time, you can record up to just about 8 hours of actual shooting time within the Nikon system. A good idea when starting this also is to turn vibration reduction off. You also want to set your picture control and set up your white balance as well, because again, one of the things that you do need to remember is this is creating the movie for you in camera. Getting back to the menu, The next option is exposure smoothing, which is something that you would probably want to make things appear a little smoother. Silent photography, leave this to on. Essentially what this does is it stops the shutter from moving up and down, and it enables the camera to create the time-lapse movie consuming less power. So that's a good thing, because power, does kind of count in a time-lapse, because the camera will be running for a very long period of time. It prevents any shake in camera from the shutter moving back and forth. Okay, so, and it also enables it to be silent, which is kind of a benefit, but I'm not sure we really care about that these cameras are super quiet as it is, but another added benefit. Okay. Image area, so we can do full frame. This is a full frame camera, so I would want to do full frame. However, if you were using a DX lens, or if you wanted to crop in more tightly, you could switch that to DX. Next up is the frame rate, frame size. So in this example, I was shooting at 4K at 24 frames per second. That was the final outputted product by the camera. Okay, however, you could shoot at a variety of different options, and of course that will also affect the length of your outputted movie. So if you were shooting at 60 frames per second, so let's go ahead and select that, you'll see now our movie length just changed to 12 seconds. Okay, so, and if I bump this back to 24 frames per second, the movie is now 30 seconds in length. You see that in the blue down below. So the more frames per second, the shorter your movie is going to be, or the longer you're going to need to shoot to get the target that you want for the length of your film. Interval priority. Now, interval priority is kind of an interesting thing, and this doesn't generally affect people who are shooting in the daytime. Okay, but interval priority makes sure that your photos are shot every 5 seconds. Should the proper exposure time of the photo go beyond 5 seconds, and the camera can no longer take a photo every 5 seconds, that's where interval priority comes in. So what the camera is essentially asking you is, what's more important? Is it more important to get a proper exposure, or is it more important to take a photo every 5 seconds? Now again, if you're dealing with daytime, this does not affect you in any way, shape, or form. If you're dealing with a nighttime shot, this is going to definitely affect you, because if it's very dark out at night, it is possible that in our situation here, where we're taking a photo every 5 seconds, we could run into a situation where the exposure time does become longer than 5 seconds. So interval priority on or off. On enables interval priority to ensure that frames shot in program or auto are taken at the chosen interval. Off ensures that the priority is that the photos are correctly exposed. So again, like I said, it's that balance. Do you want correctly exposed, or do you want them shot at the interval? What's more important? Focus before each shot is our next option, and it's probably a good idea to manually focus and leave this off, especially if things could be changing, if there could be birds in flight, etc. You don't want the camera focusing on a bird that happens to fly by and knocking like a landscape out of focus. So I think it's a good idea to switch to manual focus and pre-compose your shot first and leave the focus before each shot off. And last but not least is destination. Do you want to go to your compact flash card or XQD card, or do you want to go to your SD card slot? And again, this only affects if you have a card with a camera with 2 card slots like the Z6 II. So that being said, all you would need to do then is go up to start, and that would begin your time-lapse movie. So again, in this scenario, this would shoot an image every 5 seconds for 1 hour. At the end of 1 hour, it would automatically create the movie for us. Okay, so I went ahead and shot a time-lapse so that I could show you what it looks like with the settings that we had here in the camera, and this is part of what it looked like. So here's about 10 seconds of it. Let's take a look at that. All right, so that's how time-lapse movie mode works. Again, it's different than interval shooting. Although interval shooting is very similar, interval shooting probably gives you a little bit more control. And the reason for that is because you're going to end up with all the series of photos at the end, not the movie at the end. Okay, so because you have all of those photos, then you can adjust them, you can adjust contrast and exposure and etc. You can do whatever you wanted to do to that series of images and then later combine them into a movie. Okay, and of course you have the ability to choose whatever format you wanted to export that movie into. But again, that's all done in software that you may or may not have. With time-lapse movie mode, this is done in the camera, so it's very easy for anyone to do. Even if it's the first time you're ever doing a time-lapse, I think that this is a great way to try it out and see if it's right for you. So a couple of tips I might throw out there. One of the things that you can do is, of course, choose the quality. And I recommend that you choose it at 4K. Two reasons. One, if there's a photo in there that you really love, you can grab a high-res screenshot that's going to be about 12 megapixels in size, and that's a nice thing to have that option. Also, you can export, again, now this is something that you need to do with software, but you can export the movie, import it into a movie editing software at 4K, and then you can export a movie at, say, 1080. Okay, so instead of you'll drop down from 4K to HD, but when you're doing that, what you can do is pan and scan inside, so you can make the 4K image appear to move within that HD box. Okay, so you can create an effect of movement within the photo that didn't really exist when you actually shot this to begin with. Okay, so there you have it. That's the differences between time-lapse movie and interval and how to use time-lapse movie mode. I hope you found this helpful. I hope it inspires you to go out and shoot a time-lapse movie. And if this did help you out, please help me out by hitting that subscribe button and ring the bell. And don't forget to leave me a comment and let me know your thoughts. And if this is something that you've tried out and you thought it was fun, it's a good way to relax. Taking an hour-long time-lapse movie, although, yeah, it is an hour of your time. I mean, if you're sitting at a beautiful location for an hour, it can be really peaceful and relaxing and quite an enjoyable way to spend the day. So, hey, that's it, folks. So thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye, YouTube.